Welcome to the book of Shoftim, Parak Daled, where we learn some very fascinating stories. A reminder, the last parak was the story of Ehud ben Gera assassinating Eglon Melech Moab. The land calms for 80 years. After him, you have the judge is Shamgar ben Anat, and he is the one who defeats 600 Plishtim just with a stick that is used by cowboys to control the cattle. He's obviously a very strong guy. And unfortunately, we go back into this cycle. Bnei Israel are saved, they sin, and once again the nations persecute them. And so the next round is Yavin Melech Canaan. He is the one who is in charge of the Jews, and his chief of staff, head of military, is Sisera. Now, you can't really defeat Sisera because he has 900 metal chariots. Now, having a metal chariot in those days is like the difference between having airplanes and not having airplanes. If you have war chariots from metal, you can defeat any army in those days. That's like the strongest weapon that's possible in those days. And so for 20 years, Sisera oppresses the Jewish people. And it's tough. It's getting tough. Bnei Israel obviously not enjoying it. And there's a prophetess, a woman who is a nevi'ah, a shofetet. She is sitting, she's Dvora, the wife of Lapidot. By the way, they say one of the reasons she's called Lapidot is because she would provide lapid, fire, for the people who wanted to study Torah at night. She's Dvora, the wife of Lapidot, and she's living in Har Ephraim between the Ramah and Beit El. We know both of those terms. And Bnei Israel always come to her. She sits under her tomer, under her beautiful palm tree, and she judges Bnei Israel. Now, one day she sends messengers to a fellow named Barak ben Avinoam from Naphtali, and she says to him, good news, we've been persecuted, we've been really tortured by the Canaanites, by Avin and Sisera, but God says go take 10,000 soldiers from Naphtali and Zvulun, go to Har Tavor, gather them, and I will cause Sisera, the chief of staff, the army general of Canaan, to come and fight with you in Nachal Kishon, and you will beat him there. My guess is the reason for that is, by the way, because in a Nachal you can't really navigate with your metal chariot, so it's not an advantage to have metal chariots. So he says, I'm going to get them to come to you to Nachal Kishon, and unfortunately Barak gets cold feet. He says, well, if you come with me, I'll go. You ever see those people? They're like, they see something good that needs to be done, and they're like, well, I'll do it, but if you'll come with me, I'll do it. That's what Barak does. He says to Dvora, I'll go if you go, and she says, fine, but then when the glory day comes, when we win this war, you won't be there to get all the credits. You know, when the credits roll up, my name will be there too, and it's not going to be only your name. So if you want to do it, I'll do it. And she goes with him to Kadesh Naphtali, and Barak calls 10,000 soldiers from Zvulun and Naphtali, and not only that, even some others join them. Now, next what happens is people tell Sisera, it says that Chever HaKeni, which by the way is the descendants of Yitro, tell Sisera that, hello, this guy is coming and he's gathering a whole army in Nachal Kishon. And so immediately Sisera calls up his 900 metal chariots, and he comes to Nachal Kishon. Dvora tells to Barak, today is the day that you will beat this war. And indeed, that's exactly what happens. Barak comes down from he comes to Nachal Kishon. He comes down from the mountain of Tavor, very big mountain today. We're going to see later more stuff about it with Shaul, but he comes down from Har Tavor to Nachal Kishon, and he destroys the army of Sisera, and it's so bad that Sisera himself has to get off a chariot and he has to start running away by foot from this brutal Israeli army that's able to really decimate the army of Sisera, and they beat him. There's no one left. So Sisera sees that it's a tough situation. He runs away. He arrives at the tent of a woman named Yael. She's from the Keni. Remember, the Keni are descendants of Yitro, so they're kind of our relatives, and also they're the ones who tipped off Sisera that the Jews are forming an army, which ended up being a tip that helped us, because then it drew him to the place where he got defeated, and she sees him and she says, come in, I see you're running away. And she brings him into her tent. She gives him hot milk. Pro tip, if you drink hot milk, it's going to put you to sleep. And so she gives him hot milk, and she says, go to sleep. And he tells her, if anyone comes to the tent and asks, is there anybody here? Shh, don't forget, it's a secret. And he tells her, don't tell anyone that I'm here. And she's like, yeah, no problem. But he didn't know that she is not on her side. And I really hate to say what happens next because it's kind of violent. But basically, she takes the peg of the tent, and while he's sleeping, remember she gave him hot milk, so he fell asleep. While he's sleeping, she takes the peg of the tent, a metal peg that's like probably a foot long, and she uses it to put it in his head while he's sleeping, and now he is dead. And so she walks to the entrance to her tent, and she sees Barak. And Barak, the head of the Jewish army, says, where is this guy? We're looking for Sisera. And she comes and tells him, oh, I think I have the guy that you're looking for. Come in. And she brings him into her tent, and indeed, there is Sisera laying dead. And so in that day, Hashem defeated Yavin, the king of Canaan, and Bnei Israel defeated Yavin Melech Canaan, so much so until it was ultimately the Bnei Israel who were collecting taxes from Canaan. So what did we have today? We have Dvora, the judgess, where she sits under the palm tree and she judges Bnei Israel. She tells Barak ben Avinoam from Kedesh Naphtali, she says to him, listen, I am told by God that you will be able to defeat Sisera and Yavin, the king of Canaan, if you draw them to Nachal Kishon. If you go to Nachal Kishon, go get 10,000 people from Zvulun and Naphtali. And he indeed is ready to do it, but he's not ready to do it alone. And he tells her, I'll do it, but only if you come with me. And she says, if I'll come with you, we split the credits. And indeed they go, and Sisera takes his 900 metal chariots, where he goes to chase Bnei Israel. He comes to Nachal Kishon, obviously not an optimal area for metal chariots. They get stuck in the uphill and the downhill, and ultimately his army is decimated while Sisera runs by foot and arrives at the tent of Yael of the Keni. She gives him hot milk. He goes to sleep. She takes the peg of the tent, boom, in his head. And then Barak is coming. He says, where's Sisera? And she shows him to him. That has been the book of Shoftim, Perek Daled. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you in next chapter, the Song of Dvora.